Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. Muscular Christianity, where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point, the home of high-definition radio. More content per cubic inch of air than any other place on your radio dial. At least that is our goal. We are part of the counterinsurgency. As C.S. Lewis pointed out, this is an occupied planet. The rightful king has landed, and he is leading us all in a great campaign of sabotage. Welcome to the underground. Welcome to the counterinsurgency. We've had some callers that have been waiting patiently. Let's go to them. Number to call if you want to get in on the program today is 888-589-8840. Let's begin with Ernie in Grants Pass, Oregon. Ernie, welcome. Thanks for calling, and thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
I'm glad that I finally got through. I'm on a cell phone here, and I've been real concerned that I was going to run out of power. Then I remembered that I do have a mobile charger, so I got it plugged in, so we're okay on that wise.
Terrific.
The reason I called, Brian, on this airliner that's dropped out of the site is I believe this is something that has been pre-planned, that the pilots had a plan right from the get-go. And the plan was to take that airline and use it as a future target, or weapon rather, to go back. As you recall, the airliner that went down, I think, in the field in Indiana was going to fly into the White House, and the guys on board put an end to that, and it crashed in the field.
Yes.
Well, I think they've been a little bit waiting for an opportunity to maybe pick up on that plan. So they have this airplane, which is a 777ER extended range, and I believe that that airplane right now is sitting on a strip of concrete in the jungle somewhere, and they're not going to find it crashed in the ocean. I believe that it's sitting on a concrete runway, probably left over from World War II. And the reasons why that nobody has been able to contact the passengers was because when the plan was to take that airliner up to about 45,000 feet, dump the cabin pressure, and all the passengers would die very quickly. That's why there's been no telephone, no cell phone, nothing going on that way. So they got rid of that problem, and then of course the other reason for it flying around so much is they're burning up fuel, so that they'll be able to land on this runway, and the airplane will be a lot lighter by the time it touched down because they burned up all the fuel.
Well, it's interesting. I know what you're saying about, because that is one of the anomalies on this flight, is it went up to 45,000 feet. It's only rated to fly up to 43,000 feet, and that's with the pressurized cabin and all that. And Ernie's exactly right. If you depressurize a cabin at 45,000 feet, people can't. They only maintain consciousness for a matter of seconds. You get down to 20-something thousand feet, you can maintain consciousness for X number of minutes, up to like a half an hour, but you get 45,000 feet. Like Ernie says, that's almost instant death. So maybe that was the plan, take them up to that level, depressurize the thing, everybody dies. Now you got a plane load of dead passengers. You don't have to worry about them storming the cockpit. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do with them. When you land, you just dump their bodies on the tarmac. It is interesting, Ernie. One other little piece just discovered this morning is that, that pilot had a simulator in his home for the 777, and they've gone and looked at all of the history of what he did with that, and they have discovered that he had a whole bunch of remote runways plotted into that simulator. So I don't know if they know that he actually simulated landing on those remote runways, but he had them logged into that simulator. And, I mean, it's hard to figure out why he would do that unless he actually had spent some time practicing landing on those strips. All right, Ernie, now what do you think about, so if they got it on a remote airstrip, how do you get that thing refueled then?
Okay, well, they have all kinds of, they have resources for trucking in overground fuel trucks. If they've got a plan to take that airplane and dump it, put it into the desert, into the jungle somewhere, they certainly have thought far enough ahead to be able to get the fuel trucks into that. And they've got all the time. Time is on their side.
Yeah. All right, Ernie, I appreciate the call. It's just a fascinating, and, I mean, Ernie's suggestion is entirely plausible, and it fits all of the facts, that we know. And, so who knows? I mean, he could be exactly right, and they're preparing to turn this thing into a human-guided missile. We don't know where it's going to go, where they're going to target it. But they got to where they went by flying below radar. In other words, they escaped detection by flying below the radar. So by kind of hugging the terrain, dangerous as it was, so perhaps they would try to do that again. All right, let's go to John in Lottie, Florida. John, thank you for calling. Thanks for waiting. What's on your mind, my friend?
I thank Jesus for you, Brian, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking my call. There's a new false god on the horizon. That is a law god. Brother, you yourself said that people look to the government for everything, and that is the way with homosexuals. If society don't accept them, they go to the law, and that's where we get same-sex marriage from. So why don't we just do away with marriage license then? And Christians, they don't need marriage license because they get married in the church under grace and natural law, so we don't really need it.
Well, it's an interesting suggestion, John, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about this idea. Just get the government out of the marriage business altogether and let that become just an issue for the church. And as appealing as that is in theory, here's the question, John. What's going to happen when there's a divorce? Who gets to decide? Who decides who gets the kids? Who decides alimony? Who decides division of property?
Well, under grace, you go by what the Bible says, Galatians and all.
Well, what does the Bible say about that, though?
Well, in most cases, the women get the kids, if they're not old enough.
Yeah, but see, the question is, John, who is going to have the legal authority to make that call? I mean, my point is, no matter how you set that up, you cannot keep the state out of the marriage issue. In fact, this would guarantee the state would become even more involved in the marriage issue. Everything's fine until somebody gets divorced. But somebody gets married in a Catholic church where there's no divorce permitted, and then one of the members of the marriage decide they want a divorce. They go to a Unitarian church, and they get married in the Unitarian church. The Catholic church, meanwhile, does not recognize the divorce because they don't recognize the divorce. The Unitarian church says, yeah, you are divorced. We'll grant you a divorce, plus we're going to give you custody of the kids. So my point is somebody is going to have to make that decision. Somebody's going to have to divide the baby. And in God's economy, according to the scriptures, that is the role of the state. That's a proper role of the state to see that justice is done in cases like that. So John, I find that theory kind of appealing. I just think from a pragmatic standpoint and from a biblical standpoint, it's never going to work. But I appreciate the call, John. Thank you for that. Focal Point AFR Talk back in 2.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
The Obamacare enrollment websites of the 14 state exchanges are working better than healthcare.gov.